Well, good morning, and look at our office all decked out in Christmas. We've got our kettle for our telethon coming up on Friday, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. We've got our stockings hung with care, or stocking, Santa, the tree. Welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. And we have a lot to discuss this morning. President-elect Trump, giving a couple of interviews, one on Meet the Press and one to the New York Post. We'll be talking about those. Some of the picks he made over the weekend. Also, obviously, Syria in the news. We'll be talking about that as well. First, as an update from something we've talked about so extensively, I thought I'd start the program with this. We've talked about the radicalization of college campuses and how many young people are deciding that maybe college isn't the right thing for them, that maybe they go into trades, or maybe they start not in thousands and thousands of dollars of debt, but maybe they start earning money right out of high school. Well, according to The Guardian, college enrollment is falling at a, quote, concerning rate, according to new data. Fewer 18-year-olds are enrolling, especially at four-year schools. But the number of applications continues to grow. College enrollment is dropping at a concerning rate. Data from the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center shows enrollment of 18-year-old freshmen has dropped by 5% this fall semester. The data reflects enrollments reported for 1.4 million 18-year-old freshmen as of October the 31st. The decline is most significant at both public and private, nonprofit four-year colleges, which have seen a drop of more than 6% in enrollment. For 46 states, Inside Higher Education noted the average drop was almost 7%. At prestigious universities with lower acceptance rates, the largest drops in enrollment were among freshmen of color. Black freshmen, for example, enrolled 16.9% less at highly selective public and private nonprofit four-year schools. The primary reason for the drop, experts say, is more complicated. I wonder if it is as complicated as they think it is. If you're watching the news and you see the anti-Semitic protests raging on college campuses where Jewish students are intimidated, threatened, maybe you think twice about taking part in that. Can you imagine being maybe even $100,000 in debt going to a place like Columbia? And you get out and you're applying for a job and they look at your resume and they say, ooh, Columbia, I don't have the time or the resources to look into your background to see if you were part of the anti-Semitic protests. So we're just going to label you in or lump you in with all those protesters. A major concern. And not only were those protests raging, college campuses, the administration encouraging them. In many cases, the faculty taking part in them. And I think that had a major role as well with the victory of Donald Trump. When Biden is talking about forgiving student loan debt, making you and me, the taxpayer, pay for these college kids to protest in anti-Semitic, anti-American, anti-police ways, it got a little frustrating, I think, for the American people. The person working hard in Pennsylvania, just trying to eke by, trying to put food on their table, at times struggling with that, and then they realize that they're paying. Maybe they didn't go to college, or maybe they paid off their kids' loans, or maybe they paid off their own loans and now having to pay for others. Well, now I think some colleges a little bit are starting to learn the error of their ways. Colleges across the country are shutting down expansive and expensive diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, some of which were put in place just a few years ago. While students, faculty, administrators, and experts all acknowledge DEI programs can be flawed, bans are prompting colleges to close up cultural centers and rewrite course catalogs, moves that can interfere with student life and threaten free speech. DEI programs, many of which sprung up in 2020 amid Black Lives Matter protests and a national reckoning on race, often involve running cultural centers, ensuring diversity in hiring, and developing training programs to promote inclusiveness. And we've talked in the past on this program, the cost to these colleges when you look at the people they hire for these positions in DEI, really making a lot of money. They have become a favorite target for Republican governors, and President-elect Trump has promised a nationwide crackdown. Quote, if you look at the way this has actually been implemented across the country, DEI is better viewed as standing for discrimination, exclusion, and indoctrination, said Florida Governor Ron DeSantis back in April. Institutions in these states, such as Alabama, where DEI is restricted, are responding with sweeping changes, many of which are broader than the laws dictate. The University of Utah and Weber State University in Ogden both eliminated all their cultural centers, including resource centers for black students, LGBTQ students, and women. The Salt Lake Tribune reports. Administrators at the University of North Texas made hundreds of edits to the titles and descriptions of courses to take out references to race and equity. But don't think those classes are still not indoctrinating, mind you. They just, from the PR standpoint, they needed to rename them. University of North Florida closed its cultural centers and eliminated its interfaith and intercultural centers, which were open to all students. So maybe these universities starting to realize that their cash cow starting to dry up. That they can't keep indoctrinating these students into radicalism, as we saw with the anti-Semitic protests raging and continuing to rage in some instances. A comment from a viewer. When he was in high school, I advised my son to go to BOCES for a trade. His guidance counselor told him to take college courses. He is a union carpenter, and he is sorry he didn't take my advice. He said he would have started out at a higher level and moved up faster. Yes, you think of all of that time spent actually learning the trade and not getting yourself into that at college. It's a very good point. Thank you for that comment from a viewer. There's so much going on. Do you want to talk? Well, let's talk about Syria for just a moment. This is a major focus in the news today. We do have quite a few, weirdly enough, New York updates, kind of all over the place, but I think you're going to find interesting. Syria's Bashar al-Assad and his family are in Moscow, it is being reported, after Russia granted them asylum. Ousted Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has fled to Russia after Islamist rebels rolled into the capital of Damascus and ended his despotic family's 50-year reign of terror. Assad, who inherited the office from his father all the way back in 2000, reportedly slipped out of Syria earlier Sunday morning as rebels closed in on his palace. He arrived in Moscow later in the day, according to Russian state news agencies. And did you see the Ferraris and the fancy cars? I guess some of the rebels stole a very awkward and embarrassing photo of him in a very small bathing suit, I'm sure using as a way to mock and ridicule him. A longtime protector of Assad's regime, Moscow has granted the 59-year-old and his family asylum after they made their way to the city by private jet. Rebels stormed through the gates of Damascus Sunday, where they were met with no resistance from the government's army. Most gunfire crackling through the street has come from celebratory shots in the air, while crowds have filled the city squares, waving revolutionary flags and chanting freedom. Assad's palace has also been sacked, with rebels making off with gaudy loot and exposing the gratuitous luxury his family has been enjoying while the Syrian people suffer through more than a decade of a bloody civil war. Moscow, meanwhile, has called for an emergency UN Security Council session to discuss this situation, while Russia's news agency reported the rebels have promised to not harm Russia's military bases in Syria. The rebels now face the task of establishing a government after 14 years of war and dissent, which Assad met with the same brutal and violent tactics his father used to torture the country into submission across his 30-year reign. A former al-Qaeda leader who said he cut ties with the terror group years ago, Abu Mohammed al-Golani, heads the strongest rebel faction and is poised to take control of Syria. Al-Golani claims to support reshaping Syria into a place where people from numerous beliefs can thrive together, and called Assad's fight, quote, a victory to the Islamic nation, while addressing the public on Sunday. Despite the stunning victory in Damascus, Syria still has a long way to go before the fighting settles down. Rebels across the country remain divided into numerous factions, while fighting continues in the north between Turkey-backed fighters and U.S.-allied Kurdish forces. ISIS also still maintains a foothold in the country. But from Damascus, al-Golani is already at work trying to win the people over. A rebel statement was broadcast over Syria's state television Sunday, announcing Assad had been overthrown and that all prisoners he'd been holding had been freed. It's also called for people to preserve institutions of, quote, the Free Syrian State. Now, Israel has begun bombing Damascus. Israel's prime minister claimed, Israel's prime minister claimed credit Sunday for the events leading to the downfall of Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad. and use the moment to boost the Jewish state's security by bombing terror sites in Damascus. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, which we're going to talk about later on, Prime Minister Netanyahu is set, according to reports, is set to attend Donald Trump's inauguration on January 20th. He claimed in a video statement that the fall of the Assad regime to rebels was, quote, a direct result of our forceful actions against Hezbollah in Iran, Assad's main supporters. It set off a chain reaction of all those who want to free themselves from this tyranny, the prime minister stated in a speech regarding the issue. He added that Israel's forces quickly captured Syrian positions outside Damascus to ensure that no hostile forces embeds itself right next to the border of Israel. Israel also bombed sites within the capital itself, including a security complex and a government research center that it said Iran had previously used to develop weapons. The IDF said its fears of chemical weapon stockpiles falling into the hands of rebel forces who might use them against Israel. For years, Israel has conducted attacks on Iran-linked targets in Syria, but a tenuous peace deal struck in 1974 at the end of the Yom Kippur War with the Assad family's dictatorship kept the two countries from open war. With the fall of Assad, the treaty is officially dead, Netanyahu said. The agreement held for 50 years. Last night, it collapsed. Israel's fresh strikes over the weekend occurred after Islamic rebels captured Damascus following a 2-week offensive. Netanyahu called Assad's downfall, quote, a historic day that offers great opportunity. So according to CNN, Israel is watching with trepidation, if you will, after 50 years of Assad rule is up. In a sign of potential danger Israel feels from unknown rulers in Damascus, Netanyahu ordered the military to seize the buffer zone that separates the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights from the rest of Syria. Quote, together with the defense minister and with full backing from the cabinet, I directed the IDF yesterday to take control of the buffer zone and the dominant positions near it. This is Benjamin Netanyahu. We will not allow any hostile forces to establish itself on our border. It is the first time Israeli troops would be stationed in the buffer zone since 1974. Israel leaders are watching events across the border in Syria with a mix of trepidation and glee. We don't know much, said Boaz Shapira, a researcher with the Alma Foundation, a think tank dedicated to issues in northern Israel. The situation that we were used to in Syria in the past 50 years with the Assad regime has changed completely. Bashar al-Assad was hardly an ally, but there was also an understanding that allowed the countries to coexist. Though Israel occasionally offered treatment to casualties of Syria's civil war and maintained official neutrality in the conflict. The Israeli military has also, according to CNN, for years targeted supply chains of Iran and its proxy Hezbollah in Syria, most notably killing Iranian military commanders in the Iranian consulate in Damascus in April, but avoided targeting the Assad regime itself. The capture of Damascus means that Israeli leaders will have to evaluate the implications of their own security. Iran has now lost one of its most important bulwarks in the region. That will be cause for celebration in Israel, which has been fighting Iranian-backed forces in Gaza and Lebanon since October of last year. Netanyahu, who declared the assassination of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah was a step towards changing the balance of power in the region for years to come, will see this as advancing that goal. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. There's a lot to discuss about Trump, so I don't want to talk too much about Assad, but of course, breaking news this morning and something that needed to be brought to your attention. I have a couple other quick things on. I'm going to tie it in with a really interesting piece from Miranda Devine, who says, in the eyes of the world, America is back thanks to Donald Trump, whether they like it or not. We'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. Keep those comments and keep those waves coming in. Yes, we are preparing for the Salvation Army Telethon, pardon me, which is coming up on Friday. So mark your calendar. We will have QR codes that you can send in money. You can get your money to me ahead of time. As you see, I have a kettle right here in the studio in preparation of that. If you see me in the window, if you think of it, maybe text me before, but if you see me in the window, come on in and drop off your check or your cash because a very amazing listener, to Frankly Speaking, has so generously offered to match up to $5,000. So if we make $5,000 for the Salvation Army by Friday after the telethon at 8, by Friday at 8, that will be matched with another $5,000, so $10,000. If we make $2,000, it'll be $2,000. But we're shooting for that goal of $5,000. So I hope that you'll be a part of it. We'll have a number on the bottom of the screen where you can text on Friday. We'll have a QR code that you can scan donate that way. If you have any questions about how you can donate to the telethon, just go ahead and text me or leave me a voicemail because we're really trying to hit that $5,000 goal. So it'll be matched and make it $10,000 for the Salvation Army, who does so much amazing work for our community throughout the year. You know them for ringing the bell, but they do so much more year round, and they're so humble about it you may not realize. So I asked specifically if they could send me the numbers, and we'll read those on Friday, of how many people they help throughout the year. It is mind-boggling how much they are able to accomplish with essentially so little. And last year, because of the nature of the kettle and people not carrying cash anymore, there was quite a shortfall. That doesn't mean that the Salvation Army of Corning was not still doing all the amazing work they always do throughout the year. It was just more of a struggle. So we are going to try to do the best we can for the Salvation Army. And by doing so, we're just going to have a fun time on Friday. We're going to be playing amazing music. We've got music from the Crystal Chords, Doc Possum, always a fan favorite. We also have some special guests that will be joining us on the broadcast. So make sure, again, either bring your money ahead of time. I will get that QR code up here later in the week. There'll be a website that you can go to as well where you can donate specifically. And the way it works is, just so you know, it's not going to be like a typical telethon where we have a board in the back that says how much we made. We'll have the final count when they count all the money from that specific kettle. They do them all on the same day. I believe it's Monday. So we'll have it early next week, the results of the telethon. But please be a part of it. All right, now we've got to take a short break because I am running a little bit late. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
And Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon.
Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is history making.
Fox website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. A beautiful morning here on Market Street. Were you able to make it down to Sparkle on Saturday? Or if you made it to Dr. Coleman's Unity in the Community Rally, I'd love to hear from you and give your thoughts on how it all went. Here's a comment from a viewer. You need to plan for the local jobs that will have jobs by the time you get out of high school. And this is in reference to kids opting out of college realizing the radicalization of college campuses, the indoctrination that we've seen continuing. And there's always jobs in the trades. I started in electronics, but by the time I got out of high school and college, the electronics jobs had dried up. Then IBM and electronics moved away. Good point. Always prepare. But that goes with college, too. You see so many people. Who was it that was complaining? It was one of the anti-Semitic protesters. And what was their major? It was like 18th century socialist poetry or something. I mean, what are you going to do with that degree? At that point, you're just buying a piece of paper, right? I mean, that seems like someone who's probably going to be a career protester anyway. So it's maybe more about that piece of paper than anything else. But yes, always plan. That's why I went into communications, public relations, because that's the job I wanted to go to. And there always, well, at one time there always seemed to be jobs in media. President Biden claimed credit for toppling Assad, kind of interesting, saying that the U.S. policies isolating Assad, tying Russia down in Ukraine, and allowing Israel freedom of action against Iran and its Hezbollah proxy weakened the regime and left it without defenders. Quote, this is President Biden. Over the past 4 years, my administration pursued a clear, principled policy towards Syria. First, we made clear from the start that sanctions on Assad would remain in place unless he engaged seriously in a political process to end the civil war as outlined in the UN Security Council resolution that passed in 2015. But Assad refused. So he carried out a comprehensive sanctions program against him and all those responsible for atrocities against the Syrian people. Second, we maintained our military presence in Syria, our counter ISIS, to counter the support of local partners as well as on the ground, their partners, never ceding an inch of territory, taking out leaders of ISIS, ensuring that ISIS could never establish a safe haven there again. Third, we supported Israel's freedom of action against Iranian networks in Syria and against actors aligned with Iran, transporting lethal aid to Lebanon, and, when necessary, order the use of military force against Iranian networks to protect U.S. forces. Our approach has shifted the balance of power in the Middle East. Though, through this combination of support from our partners, sanctions, diplomacy, and targeted military force, when necessary, we now see new opportunity opening up for the people of Syria and for the entire region. So Biden cheering that Assad was toppled and offered his support for the Syrian people as U.S. hits ISIS strongholds in a moment of risk and uncertainty. He said, we will not let this happen again, meaning Syria becoming a haven for ISIS. CENTCOM confirmed that it had conducted dozens of precision U.S. strikes on more than 75 targets in eastern Syria, hitting ISIS camps, leadership, and other assets. There was no initial evidence of civilian casualties in the bombing campaign, according to CENTCOM. At long last, the Assad regime has fallen. This regime brutalized and tortured and killed literally hundreds of thousands of innocent Syrians, said Biden. The fall of the regime is a fundamental act of justice. It's a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria to build a better future for their proud country. It's also a moment of risk and uncertainty as we will all turn to the question of what comes next. So the U.S. did launch dozens of airstrikes on ISIS across Syria as the conflict in the Middle East, as it says here, spirals. Battle damage assessments are underway, and there are no indications of civilian casualties. The strikes against the ISIS leaders, operatives, and camps were conducted as part of the ongoing mission to disrupt, degrade, and defeat ISIS, to prevent the terrorist group from conducting external operations, and to ensure that ISIS does not seek to take advantage of the current situation to reconstitute in central Syria. There should be no doubt we will not allow ISIS to reconstitute and take advantage of the current situation in Syria, said General Michael Eric Kurilla. All organizations in Syria should know that we will hold them accountable if they partner with or support ISIS in any way. Now they're saying it's a new era in Syria as the world watches. That's according to Reuters. Assad's fall wiped out a bastion of which Iran and Russia exercised influence across the Arab world. Moscow gave asylum to Assad and his family, according to Russian media reports. As I said, Biden said Syria is in a period of risk and uncertainty. One GOP representative predicts that this is the equivalent to the Berlin Wall. This is so significant. The fall of the Assad dictatorship. The ripple effect of this is going to be remarkable, said Representative Joe Wilson. Remember him from South Carolina? It's truly the equivalent to the Berlin Wall, which led to a ripple effect of dozens of countries becoming free after 50 years of occupation and totalitarian control. So there's a lot of questions of what's at stake for America in this. We're going to talk about that when we come back. A couple of other international topics. We do want to get to Trump's Meet the Press interview over the weekend. Some interesting things coming from there. A couple quick things about Biden and a couple quick things about Harris as well. Tim Walz giving an interview over the weekend. And also a couple New York State updates. So stay with us. Boy, this show's moving quickly. I think this is going to be a busy week. I can tell already. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
The holiday season has arrived, a time where more than ever our thoughts turn gratefully to those who serve our community and those all around us. May the holiday season end the present year on a cheerful note and make way for a fresh and bright new year. Here's wishing you a happy holidays. This holiday greeting is brought to you by our friends at Tom South Corning Collision, Sheddon's Wholesale, Suburban Propane, Corning Building Company, Empire Bricks, Hector Wine Company, and Apple Ridge Senior Living.
Now you leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, the portable oxygen concentrator that moves with you.
This little box changed my life. I can now do all those things that I want to do. You just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
Inogen portable oxygen systems are small and light and deliver up to 12 hours of medical-grade oxygen on a single charge.
Now that I've got my Inogen, I've got my freedom back. I'm back to living again.
Try an Inogen system free for 14 days.
Call now.
Heather and I had an argument just like any other couple. I was lost and lonely. I had snapped. I had a gun and I was going to take my own life. Heather helped me realize that there was still life to live for the better of myself, my family. My weapon is now safely put away.
My son, Ricky, took his life by the use of a firearm. It broke me in ways that I never knew that I could be broken. And I contemplated suicide. Afterwards, we found out his girlfriend, she was pregnant. If that was my grandson, I was gonna have to be here for him. I still own my firearm. I keep it in a safe because I want to keep my grandson and myself safe.
A moment of crisis can happen to anyone.
Store your gun securely, locked, unloaded, and away from ammo.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, taunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
Thank you again to Boss Security. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio on this beautiful Monday morning. The question is asked, what's at stake for America in Syria after Bashar al-Assad? According to David Adesnik, he says, will Syria turn its back on other jihadists or welcome their leaders, like America's supposed allies in Turkey and Qatar? Washington's careful use of incentives may help direct Syria towards modernization and away from an Islamist dictatorship. Now, speaking of the international front, then we're going to get to that piece by Miranda Devine. Because and you could talk about Syria if you want to, feel free. We're just kind of wrapping up that discussion this morning. But Hamas, on the other hand, Hamas is reportedly telling other Palestinian terrorist groups to identify all Israeli hostages in their hands, and the first sign of real movement towards a hostage deal in months. Now, this comes off the heels of Donald Trump's warning that there will be, quote, all hell to pay if Hamas does not release the remaining 100 Israeli hostages, including several Americans. That threat, accompanied by behind-the-scenes diplomacy, seems to have focused minds in the region. The Times of Israel reported yesterday sources within various Palestinian terror groups in Gaza say that Hamas has told them to compile information on the hostages they hold in preparation for a ceasefire and a hostage deal with Israel. Hamas has told factions, including Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the Popular Front, and the Popular Resistance Committee, to prepare information such as whether their hostages are alive or dead, the sources told the Agence France. Right, let me try that again. Agence France Presse. Qatar's prime minister said yesterday that there were renewed momentum. Qatar's prime minister said yesterday there was renewed momentum for a ceasefire and hostage release deal following the election of Donald Trump in the United States. And that ties in with a piece from Miranda Devine. She said the reopening of Notre Dame Cathedral, which, by the way, did you see that with President Trump in attendance, sitting by Jill Biden? Looks like they're buddy-buddy. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But with that reopening, it marked the de facto coming out of Donald Trump as the leader of the free world. This is Miranda Devine. His overbearing handshake with French President Emmanuel Macron sent a powerful message to the rest of the world. America is back, whether they like it or not. And that was hilarious if you haven't seen the video of that handshake. But as Trump is feted by world leaders and royalty in Paris, holds preliminary peace talks with Ukraine's Zelensky, and sends his envoy to the Middle East, the inauguration next month seems like a mere formality. Joe Biden is a pitiful afterthought in history. The Catholic president was somehow too busy to fit Notre Dame into his sluggish schedule and sent his wife instead, who made googly eyes at Trump. Joe is Pino, meaning president in name only, and short for Pinocchio. Apparently enough, given his penchant for lying. This is Miranda Devine from the New York Post. Trump, on the other hand, is at peak triumph before he even officially takes back the presidency. Mar-a-Lago, his private club in Palm Beach that was raided just 2 years ago by the FBI, who rummaged through his wife Melania's underwear drawer, has become the center of the universe. The world leaders, movie stars, and billionaires are flocking to the winter White House to find favor with Trump, who presides genially at a table in the center of the balmy terrace overlooking the palm-fringed intercoastal waterway, or takes meetings in the wood-paneled library. Exquisitely dressed women glide through the golden light from the golden era that Trump has promised America. One of the friends of Elon, who become fixtures on the terrace, said last week, it was hard to leave because it's so interesting to observe the parade of courtiers who Trump bends to his will by sheer force of personality. And of course, the cult status that comes from winning the most powerful office in the world against all odds. The other thing Trump's friends tell him is that with a single election, he managed, I think this is really important, he managed to vanquish the 5 families of politics. The Bushes, Cheneys, Clintons, Obamas, and Bidens. Let us count the ways. Bushes, while former President George W. Bush has wisely resisted openly criticizing Trump, the Bush family's relationship with Trump has been strained ever since he demolished the presidential aspirations of former first brother, low-energy Jeb Bush, and stole the nomination out from under him in 2016. While most of them have kept their thoughts to themselves, the Bushes are influential symbols of the Republican Party's never-Trump establishment that is predominantly peopled by former Bushies and suffered a humiliating defeat on November 5th at the hands of their nemesis. Cheneys. Liz Cheney, the former Wyoming congresswoman, sent packing by voters in 2022, went all in for Harris, traveling with her on the campaign trail, appearing in ads, and raising millions of dollars from never-Trumpers. She threw her lot in with the poisonous Lincoln Project, a political action committee conspired of Trump-deranged former Bush strategists irate with the gravy train dried up in 2016. She pledged, meaning Cheney, to purge the Republican Party of Trump, calling him an unrecoverable catastrophe. Isn't it interesting that people said they're going to bring down Trump to have absolutely no power? Cheney isn't even liked in her own party, for heaven's sakes. But for her dubious role on the January 6th committee, she also has made it into the ballooning list of unindicted villains who the Biden White House reportedly is considering for a presidential pardon, along with Anthony Fauci, Adam Schiff, Mark Milley, Mayorkas, others. Dick Cheney, the former 2-term neocon Bush vice president and warmonger, joined his daughter's war on Trump, calling him a coward and a person who can never be trusted with power again. Trump responded by calling him an irrelevant rhino. Neither Cheney has been seen in public since the election. Yeah, interesting. Liz Cheney, of course, loved by the media for attacking Trump. Now, mysteriously MIA. The Clintons, Bill and Hillary Clinton, threw their considerable weight behind Harris, praising her on the stage at the DNC convention. Aren't you proud to be a Democrat? Gushed the former president when he introduced Harris as the president of Joy. After Harris's loss, he admitted that he couldn't sleep for 2 years and was prone to outbursts of rage after Hillary's loss. Who knows what he'll do now? Hillary, who claimed to have mentored Harris through her vice presidency, called the VP a singular figure who will be our first woman president. I'm thrilled that Kamala is carrying the torch forward. At least Hillary can console herself with the thought that she is no longer the only Democrat to have lost to Trump. But after backing one too many losers, the Clintons' era of influence is over. And then you have the Obamas. We talked about this right after the election. Many saying that the victory of Trump is finally the destruction, if you will, the end of the Obama era. Barack Obama's very public involvement in the backstabbing of Joe Biden and anointing of Harris has tarnished the Teflon coating the former president and his wife previously enjoyed. Michelle, once contemplated as the savior of the party, stooped to insulting men as her campaign pitch by telling them their rage was stopping them from choosing Harris. Quote, "If you don't get this election right, your wife, your daughter, your mother, we as women will become collateral damage for your rage." From his own angry scolding of black men to his use of the thoroughly debunked very fine people on both sides smear against Trump, Obama showed during the campaign that he has lost touch with voters. He cemented that impression with a hysterical speech last week in which he accused Republicans of doing exactly what Democrats did to Trump, rigging elections and weaponizing the justice system. One side tries to stack the deck and lock in a permanent grip on power, either by actively suppressing votes or politicizing the armed forces or using the judiciary criminal justice system to go after opponents, he said, triggering hearty belly laughs all over the nation. The hypocrisy, there's been many op-eds written on that, the hypocrisy of Obama in those statements. But continuing, it's over for Obama. The spell is broken. Donald Trump broke him, Biden, Harris, the Bushes, the Clintons, and the Cheneys. With a spring in his step and a twinkle in his eye, Trump consigned them all to the ash heap of history. I thought that was a good piece by Miranda Devine. Feel free to weigh in. We are going to talk a couple New York State issues when we come back. If you want to talk about the assassination of Brian Thompson, there's not a lot known. I see that there's a lot of celebration online. I read somewhere that the announcement by the healthcare company that he worked for, the announcement on Facebook of his passing, had more laugh emoji faces than likes or sad faces on Facebook, for whatever that's worth. But kind of a sickening reaction there. Many people online saying they're not going to take part in being a sleuth. If you're not familiar, the internet is actually a pretty crazy place where people do a lot of hunting. They like to hunt for clues. They like to find out who did something, these mysteries that they are saying now they don't want to take part in it. Top internet sleuths refused to solve the United Healthcare CEO's murder, saying, "I don't have to encourage violence. I don't have to condone violence by any means, but I also don't have to help," said one of the influencers who goes out and, again, does this kind of hunting. We can talk about that if you'd like. But right now, we have to take a short break. Stay with us. This is, Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam is brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs.
Hustle plus overbooked, plus bustling, plus cleaning overlooked. It all adds up. With Mary Maid's professional cleaning services, you'll have one less thing to worry about. Mary Maid's, relax, it's done. Plus too busy, plus bustling, plus in a tizzy. It all adds up. With Mary Maid's professional cleaning services, you'll have one less thing to worry about. Mary Maid's, relax, it's done.
It's the best 2 hours of NFL coverage, starting with Fox NFL Kickoff at 11.
This is great TV.
It is caught! Then at noon, take it to the next level on Fox NFL Sunday.
This kid has it all.
Touchdown! America's #1 pregame show. The best NFL pregame shows are back-to-back, only on Fox.
It's a new season of Sherry.
Having a good time has always been my number one goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's take a look at some New York State issues, and we're going to talk about Trump and his interview with Meet the Press. Andrew Cuomo, the disgraced ex-governor of New York. We've been talking about him a lot lately. Speculation that he will be running for New York City mayor. He is trying to slap a gag order on a sex harassment accuser's lawyer to keep them from continuing to publicly discuss, are you ready for this? The $28 million in taxpayer funds that were paid out to defend him and others related to the case. Yes, you and I spent $28 million to defend Andrew Cuomo against those charges. Cuomo is legally entitled to have the state pay for his defense costs connected to his time in office, his camp says. Yet accuser Charlotte Bennett's legal team has been bringing up the staggering, growing legal tab to prejudice him from potential jurors and try to force a settlement in her case. Quote, there is no question that such statements are gratuitous and highly prejudicial to Governor Cuomo. Indeed, intentionally so, said Cuomo's lawyers. Why are they prejudicial? It is costing us as taxpayers over $28 million, with that continuing to grow, to defend Cuomo because these charges come from, or this accusation comes from when he was in office. So we're on the hook. And as of right now, it's around $28 million. They should be bringing that up to people. Cuomo's legal team is playing hardball as it prepares to grill Bennett in a 2-day deposition on December 18th and 19th. A session expected to total at least 14 hours and include questioning from other defendants' lawyers, the court records state. Other defendants include former top Cuomo aides Melissa Del Rosa, Judith Moog, and Judith DeRoser, who are accused of aiding and abetting Cuomo. Bennett claims Cuomo subjected her to sexualized comments about her appearance, assigned her humiliating and demeaning tasks, and beginning in early June of 2020, subjected her to invasive and unwanted questions about her personal life, romantic and sexual relationships, and history as a survivor of sexual assault, according to the original complaint. She also called Cuomo a, quote, danger to women. But Cuomo's legal team is seeking to turn the tables on Bennett, claiming she engaged in impulsive and reckless personal conduct in and around the workplace and a personal meltdown, and that far from being a harasser, Cuomo was trying to help her. Enough on the specifics of that. But you and I on the hook, and Cuomo doesn't want anybody mentioning it, for over $28 million in taxpayer funds paid out to defend the governor. We could at least get a thank you card. Democrat Richie Torres, who it's speculated, and I've mentioned it a few times on this program, could run against Kathy Hochul, primary Kathy Hochul, which would be very nice. Representative Richie Torres is considering a run for New York governor, and he's raising his national profile with a tidal wave of criticism against leaders in his own party. Torres has been vocally opposed to the Blue Stronghold's progressive criminal justice policies and has criticized how Governor Kathy Hochul has managed the Empire State, raising eyebrows about a potential primary in 2026. Quote, Hochul has a history of coded stereotyping, falsely claiming that young black Bronxites have never heard of the word computer. It's true. She said it. She knows as much about me and communities of color as she knows about governing effectively. Absolutely nothing, he wrote last week. He was also one of the first Democrats to come out and blame the progressive left for Harris's loss to Trump, saying at the time, quote, Donald Trump has no greater friend than the far left, which has managed to alienate historic numbers of Latinos, blacks, Asians, and Jews from the Democratic Party. When reached for comment, Torres' spokesperson told Fox News that he is weighing a gubernatorial bid, quote, and plans to make a final decision by mid-2025. The congressman himself gave insight into his thinking when he recently went after Eric Adams for employing a staffer who was accused of ripping down posters of Israeli hostages by Hamas. Quote, if I were at the helm of New York State or New York City government, anti-Semites need not apply. Tearing down posters of the hostages is completely unacceptable and would not be tolerated, he said on social media. So we could see. What are your thoughts about Richie Torres perhaps running in a primary against Governor Hochul. Representative Nick Langworthy, our congressman, who chaired the New York State Republican Party for over a decade, said it was not shocking to see Torres attacking Hochul while mulling his own gubernatorial bid. Richie Torres is vocalizing many of the same criticisms Republicans have raised about the dysfunction in Albany. So it's not surprising that she's facing a challenge from her own party. He dismissed Torres' critiques of progressivism as, quote, posturing in the face of Hochul's failures and the undeniable success of Trump's platform. All right, we've got a couple other New York State issues to wrap up hour number one, but we got to take a short break. Oh, we still got 2 breaks to take. Wow, we are moving fast this morning. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
Due to the tremendous response, Hesselsen's returns their Arnott Mall location this week with more great deals on their American Whirlpool, swim spas, and hot tubs. Thousands of dollars of savings and over 25 models still in stock, but 4 days only this Thursday through Sunday. Take delivery now and save even more. Plus, free chemicals, free steps, and free Bluetooth music. Hesselsen still offers 0% financing options for up to 5 full years. Hesselsen's Arnott Mall this Thursday through Sunday, Old Champ Store, with their American Whirlpool, hot tubs, and swim spas. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, taunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is History Making. The Boss Security Roof Cam brought to you by, the Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselsen studio, talking about some New York State issues. They think that Eric Adams, they're questioning whether or not he's even a Democrat, and he doesn't rule out switching parties, as he has been kind of getting closer to Trump. But New York Governor Kathy Hochul, get ready for this one, folks. Governor Kathy Hochul has signed a new law, and it's to help workers facing job-related post-traumatic stress. On Saturday, Hochul signed new legislation that will allow employees in New York to file for workers' compensation after extraordinary workplace stress. Previously, only selected first responders were allowed to file for this type of benefit. Quote, New Yorkers work hard, and those who have experienced the unthinkable while on the job deserve to be treated fairly. The mental health crisis our country has experienced since the COVID-19 pandemic is unprecedented, and we need to do everything in our power to lend a hand to those in need. I'll never stop fighting for the working people of New York. This bill is part of an initiative by the governor that looks to invest $1 billion in health care. Yet she vetoed that rural suicide help bill to help people who are, I guess, contemplating suicide in rural areas, have that conversation, help them get the help that they need. She vetoed that. Interesting. The governor's 7-point plan was inspired in part by the discussions with New York teens held during last year's Youth Mental Health Listening Tour, where Hochul spoke with middle and high school students across the state to gauge their mental health experiences so the state's policies and programming can be directly informed by those most impacted by them. So if you have some type of post-traumatic stress disorder because your job was stressful, it was tough, you may now be eligible for compensation. You may be eligible. It's amazing to file for workers' comp. All right, enough about that. Enough about New York. Though you can weigh in at any time. A little quiet this morning. That's okay. You're getting excited for the telethon on Friday for the Salvation Army of Corning. How was the weekend? Did you go to Dr. Coleman's Unity in the Community rally? I'd love to hear from you if you were able to attend, or if you came down here to Sparkle here on Market Street. Love to hear how it went. So we've got a few things here about the pardon of Hunter Biden. I know we've been talking about it extensively. It's been the talk really of the town. Democrats still very upset the way it's gone down. Now the White House is pinning the blame on somebody else. We're going to talk about that because it has had such a backlash from both parties. Democrats very upset about the pardon, and for various reasons. The way that Biden talked about it being the politicalization of the Department of Justice, which is his Department of Justice, but talking very much like Trump in that instance. So they find that very difficult to defend. And they find it difficult to defend, though they still are, the fact that he said no all those numerous times, that he would not pardon Hunter, and then, of course, ultimately doing so. Senator Dick Durbin was on State of the Union yesterday. Jake Tapper said, so President Biden, speaking of pardons, told the American people again and again, especially while he was running against Trump and trying to contrast himself against Trump, he said again and again he would not pardon his son Hunter. Then a week ago, he turned around and gave Hunter not just a pardon, but a blanket pardon for any crimes he may or may not have committed in the last 11 years, covering not just the gun and tax charges and convictions, but also anything he did while in the throes of addiction involving Burisma, his alleged influence peddling dealings with the Chinese government and Chinese companies. Your colleague, Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado, said that the Hunter Biden pardon, quote, further erodes America's faith that the justice system is fair and equal for all. Do you agree? Do you have any concerns about this pardon? And he does raise such a good point. It's to cover, well, it's really to protect not just Hunter, but in many ways, as people have said in this program, to protect Biden himself as well. Because if you look at Burisma and this influence peddling, Durbin said, quote, listen, Joe Biden is my friend. I've known him for over 20 years, and I'll tell you most conversations I have with him is about his family. This is a man who loves his children and has gone through quite an ordeal, having lost a former wife and child in an automobile accident and seeing the two boys, Bo and Hunter, go through serious hospital stays and trying to rebuild their lives. If I have to have a bias in this area, it's a loving parent who wants to protect his child. I understand that situation, and I understand Michael Bennett's observation. He promised he wouldn't do it, and now he's doing it. But it's a labor of love, as far as I'm concerned, from a loving father. I'm kind of surprised they haven't been pushing that idea more. They did it first, but really that's all Biden had to say. And I know I keep going back to this. I believe it was Stephen A. Smith, of all people, who I've been quoting, saying that if he would have just come out and said, hey, it's my son. I know I said I wasn't going to. It's my son. What am I going to do? I think people would have been a little more forgiving. At least the Democrats could have spun it like Dick Durbin's trying to do here, saying it's just about his family. He loves his family so much. But instead, he talked about the politicalization of the Department of Justice, his own Department of Justice. So that caused great concern amongst Democrats. But I think, to Mr. Bennett's point, it does further erode America's faith that the justice system is fair and equal for all. And I think, going back, and we talked about it with Joe Sempolinski last week, what an important part the Bragg case, the Tish James case, what an important role that had in the victory of Donald Trump. People got sick and tired of watching the politicalization of the weaponization as well of the judicial system and that lawfare used against the president. So really what Biden was saying was echoing what Trump had been saying on the campaign trail, and that was an outrage to Democrats. But I do believe it further erodes America's faith in the justice system, because it's not just it's a blanket for what he was being charged with. It's a blanket of laws that he might have broke that we don't even know about yet. He could have done anything in that 11-year period and can get in no kind of trouble. We got to take a short break, though. Wrap up hour number one. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
The holiday season has arrived, a time where more than ever our thoughts turn gratefully to those who serve our community and those all around us. May the holiday season end the present year on a cheerful note and make way for a fresh and bright new year. Here's wishing you a happy holidays. This holiday greeting is brought to you by our friends at Tom South Corning Collision, Sheddon's Wholesale, Suburban Propane, Corning Building Company, Empire Bricks, Hector Wine Company, and Apple Ridge Senior Living.
And Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon.
Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox.
And we are back. Thank you to Boss Security in Horseheads for bringing us the roof cam. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. We're talking about the Hunter pardon. Senator Amy Klobuchar. You remember she ran for president. People keep telling us that she's like up-and-comer or kind of a favorite, and I don't really see it, but she's the senator from Minnesota. They asked her about not only the Hunter pardon, but also about these suggested preemptive pardons for Dr. Fauci, Adam Schiff, Liz Cheney. She says she's not a fan. She was on MSNBC. I am not a fan of these. I don't like the pardons of the president's son. I don't think that was prudent. But I also am very concerned about the idea of the preemptive pardons. I am, of everyone, very concerned about what Trump is going to do with this Justice Department. The president has this power. I would prefer that Trump abused his pardon power. I think that we should have pardon reform. It's right. It is a right of these presidents. But you could have a committee set up. You could have a suggestion from a board. You could do all kinds of things. That's what I'd like to see. How did he misuse his pardons, out of curiosity? I mean, in full disclosure, not full disclosure, in full fairness to Klobuchar, she did say she doesn't like Biden's. That maybe that's an overstep, but I don't know. Colorado Governor Jared Polis said, while as a father, I certainly understand Biden's natural desire to help his son by pardoning him. I'm disappointed that he put his family ahead of the country. This is a bad precedent that could be abused by later presidents and will sadly tarnish his reputation. Hunter brought the legal troubles he faced on himself, and one can sympathize with his struggles while also acknowledging that no one is above the law, not a president and not a president's son. Well, we learned after how many years of talking about the law and justice and that no one is above the law, not even former president. No one's above the law. Well, we learned last week, well, a little longer than that now, that Hunter Biden is indeed above the law. So, question from a viewer before it goes. So 11 years ago, hypothetically, if Hunter, well, I'm not going to go into specifics that you mentioned. Yeah, but he can get away with anything. He can no longer be prosecuted because of his father's pardon. Yeah. I mean, it's about any crimes we know of or ones that we have not learned about yet. So it's 11 years. You mentioned a rape or a murder or something like that. Yes. I mean, if that were to come out in that 11-year time period that he had engaged in something like that, he would not be prosecuted. That's how blanket and unprecedented this pardon is. It's basically a get out of jail free card for 11 years. And it's crime known and unknown. Crimes that he might have committed known and unknown. That's why so many people are shocked and outraged. And if you look at the time frame, it's right when he was working with Burisma. And there's some questions there about Joe Biden's involvement in this influence peddling. So I think it's just as much to save Joe as it is Hunter. All right, that's it for this hour. 1 hour down. We've got our second hour coming up in just a few moments. So I hope that you stay with us. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in. We still have a lot to cover, specifically a few more things here about the pardon, but not much more. And then we're going to talk about Trump on Meet the Press and giving that interview with the New York Post. We'll dive into that as well. So stay with us. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 on the way in mere moments.
Due to the tremendous Response. Hesselsen's returns their Arnott Mall location this week with more great deals on their American Whirlpool swim spas and hot tubs. Thousands of dollars of savings and over 25 models still in stock, but 4 days only this Thursday through Sunday. Take delivery now and save even more. Plus, free chemicals, free steps, and free Bluetooth music. Hesselsen still offers 0% financing options for up to 5 full years. Hesselsen's Arnott Mall this Thursday through Sunday, Old Champ Store, with their American Whirlpool hot tubs and swim spas. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
Name something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon. Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big Fox.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is History Making. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselsen studio here on Market Street in Corning. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in this morning. As I'd mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, on Friday is the Salvation Army of Corning's telethon. Right here on Big Fox. It's the second annual. We had a blast last year. Great music, great interviews. Well, it will continue on Friday. Friday, we're raising money for the Salvation Army of Corning, who was in such need last year with that shortfall because people just don't carry around the cash like they used to. So we're putting on a mad dash campaign to raise as much as possible because an amazing viewer, to Frankly Speaking, has promised to match donations up to $5,000. So if we can raise $5,000 because of this telethon, the Salvation Army will get $10,000. Now, if we raise $1,000, they'll get $2,000, et cetera, et cetera. Some people who were not able to make it in on Friday have already stopped by the studio, dropped off a couple of checks and some change. As you can see from the intro, we've got our kettle right there. From the Salvation Army. So please, if you have any questions about how you can donate, get a hold of me, or if you want to come down and donate in person, you can on Friday, or ahead of time, just text me when you'll be around. I'll try to be here because we want to do all that we can to help out the Salvation Army of Corning with that telethon. Crystal Chords are back with some great music. We're going to have some more wonderful music, one recorded specifically for us, one a live rendition, all Christmas tunes, of course, with Doc Possum. We've got special guests that are going to be interviewed. We're going to have a blast, and I hope that you'll take part in it and donate for the Salvation Army of Corning. We'll have those phone numbers for you that you can text. Also, you can... We'll have a QR code and a website that you can go to. But if you'd like to start already, you can text the word MATCH, M-A-T-C-H, to, ready? 31333. So again, text MATCH to 31333. All right. So the report... a report has come out that said House Democrats are angry at Biden and Hunter over the pardon that it pushed them over the edge. Now, we've seen Democrats turning on Joe Biden for quite some time now. Now, even though they propped him up for 3.5 years to keep him in office, now they're blaming him for not dropping out soon enough and only giving Harris 107 days to campaign. How much more money would she have needed if she had more than 107 days? I mean, she spent more than $1.5 billion in 107 days. She's $20 million on top of that in debt. Man, if this thing was a normal contest, she would have been double digits, 10 billion? I mean, 107 days, she spent 1.5 billion. But anyway, the relationship between Joe Biden and House Democrats appears to have grown strained. Multiple House members told Axios, far-left Axios this week, that tensions were already brewing between the commander-in-chief and Democrat lawmakers, but the pardon sent many over the edge, said one senior House Democrat. Quote, people are really angry. Now, this Democrat speaking on condition of anonymity, but keep in mind this is from Axios, far-left Axios. They estimated that more than 50% of their fellow House Democrats are frustrated about Biden's sweeping December 1st pardon for Hunter, a move he repeatedly claimed he would not make. Representative Greg Landsman chose to speak on the record, Greg Landsman speaking on the record, saying the Biden-House Democrat relationship is, quote, I don't think great. Another source of the tension seems to be the perception that Biden cost Democrats the presidential election. Quote, I think there's a widespread sense that he took too long to get out and that it made it very difficult for Vice President Harris to run the most impactful campaign, said Representative Jesus Garcia. Another senior House Democrat pointed out that some of the frustrations about Harris's loss have to do with Biden. You know, this is so disingenuous because these exact people are the ones propping Biden up for 3.5 years saying, yeah, he could do another 4 years. He's sharpest I've ever seen. He's great. I mean, this is politics at its worst, folks. To see Nancy Pelosi come out after what she did to Biden and then blame Biden. Because remember, it was the Pelosi's, it was the Harris's, it was the media, it was these representatives that had meetings with Biden. They knew that his mental decline was in full effect, and yet they said nothing and, again, continued to prop him up. The member that was Garcia, Representative Garcia, saying, geez, you know, he stuck around longer than he probably should have. Now, according to Landsman, the president got a ton done during his time in office. A ton done. Yeah? But there are legitimate questions as to whether or not he should have served one term and been done. And added that Biden should have talked through the pardon decision with others outside of his family. Now, apparently he did, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. A third senior House Democrat confirmed to Axios that, quote, there's definitely some traction or there's definitely some tension about the pardon, which came just before the younger Biden was set to face sentencing. There's a lot of frustration with Biden's about face, another House member added. I am unplugging from Biden right now, a fifth House Democrat told Axios. There's certainly frustration with the Biden administration. And in some ways, the most frustrating part is some of us really love Joe Biden. And the feeling is, why do you have to go out like this? Think of this, folks. 4 months ago, he was George Washington. He should have been on Mount Rushmore. Now they're doing everything they can to try to question his legacy, blame it all on him, which is interesting for a Republican out there. If you're a Republican, this has a lot of implications because this, to me, shows that they're not doing the soul searching they need to do. They're doing the blame game. So it's Biden. He didn't get out early enough. They don't look at how Harris ran and taking up kind of the social justice issues, the woke issues, and not really focusing on the needs of the American people. As a matter of fact, not only not focusing, laughing at you, mocking and ridiculing you when you said that you're struggling to put food on the table, that you're struggling like never before. They would laugh at you. And they say, well, look at page 38 of this statistical bureaucratic manual that says the economy is actually really good, you dummy. You garbage, or as Biden would call you, garbage. So they mocked and ridiculed you. Look how many names, our own governors, going back to what Hochul said. Hochul said that if you vote Republican, you're un-American, you're anti-women, et cetera, et cetera. So they have this distaste for you and this anger at you, and they haven't learned their lesson. Because now instead of saying, what could we have done differently? Why is there such a strain of anti-Semitism in our party? Why are we focusing on woke issues, et cetera, et cetera? Instead of looking at that and realigning, they're doing the opposite. They're just doing blame, and they're blaming. All that blame is going on Joe Biden. You know, I mentioned this with former Congressman Joe Sempolinski on last Thursday. And it's interesting to me because Republicans kind of had this major awakening after Romney's loss. You know, we've been told that McCain is the only way we can win. Then we were told Romney was the only way we can win. Going back to Dole was the only way we can win, et cetera, all these moderates, right? And after Romney just ran a horrible race and got destroyed, we said, enough is enough. And then the elites told us Jeb Bush is the only one that can beat Hillary. And that's when we had enough. And Republicans said enough is enough. We've got nothing else to lose. To quote Trump, we got nothing else to lose. Let's go with this guy who, yeah, he's rough and tumble, but maybe that's what we need. And of course, ultimately victorious. I thought Democrats may have that same kind of awakening where, wait, the elites keep telling us we have to do this. We have to pick Harris. Or we have to pick this person for VP, like in the situation of Harris, instead of maybe a Bernie. Remember, the fix was in that Bernie could never win against Hillary. They let him have his fun, let him have his rallies, let people support him. And I'll be honest, and I'd pose this question to you. What do you think back in 2016 if the system would have been fair and Bernie would have been the nominee? And the reason I ask is, remember, he was packing in rallies very much akin to like Donald Trump's. It would have been a very fascinating race, kind of this populist race. But anyway, I guess I don't have to ask you that question if you think that Bernie would have won. But I would think Democrats would be fed up by this point. Twice they stolen it from Bernie. Then they were told, hey, remember that person you voted for president, Joe Biden, to be the nominee? No, he's not the nominee anymore. It's Kamala Harris, who you may not know, or we've been told you do not like. We've been told that for 4 years. As a matter of fact, earlier this year, we were told that Biden was seriously considering dropping her, or the people around him wanted him to seriously consider dropping her to make his campaign more popular. So I don't know. But now they are blaming, because there is so much anger at this pardon, they're blaming Representative Jim Clyburn. Who's they? The White House. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said Friday that Representative Jim Clyburn played a key role in convincing Biden to pardon his son. If I'm Clyburn, I'd be saying, whoa, 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 whoa. Jean-Pierre claimed Biden, 82, wrestled with the decision to pardon his son for any and all crimes he committed between 2014 and 2024. But it was a visit from Clyburn that tipped the scales and led the president to go back on his repeated promises not to do so. Quote, you heard this president say this many times before. He believes when it comes to his family, when it comes to how he moves forward, about thinking about his family, they're the beginning, the middle, and the end. And he wrestled with this. It was not an easy thing for him to decide. Clyburn, who has long had the president's ear, spoke with the lame duck commander-in-chief 2 weeks ago and pushed for Hunter's pardon, saying, this is Clyburn's words. This is what Jean-Pierre said. This is Clyburn's words. The president was reticent when he tried to encourage him to pardon Hunter. I think that's important to note, the White House press secretary said. Jean-Pierre referenced Biden's conversation with Clyburn several times throughout the briefing, suggesting it was a major turning point for the president as he mulled going back on his promise to the American people. Clyburn said, I also told him that I thought he ought to go even further because all of that noise about Jack Smith and Liz Cheney and Dr. Fauci and all of that. So he does not deny it. Clyburn is now the one that they're putting the blame on for the Hunter Biden pardon. Now, we've got some other topics. Yes, we're going to talk about President-elect Donald Trump's Meet the Press visit. Also, his exclusive interview with the New York Post. But when we come back, well, I have a second here. Let's get away from the campaign. But on this last note, Governor Tim Walz, Harris's VP pick, admitted that, quote, he was a little surprised at the result of the presidential election. Now, it'd be interesting. Now, I don't think it would have made the difference, but isn't it interesting when you look back at when people are saying, should it have been Shapiro for Pennsylvania, perhaps was picked? I don't think it would have made that big of a difference at the end of the day, but many are pointing to Walz as one of the problems of her campaign, not necessarily popular, kind of odd, or to use his term, weird, when you saw the debate, the nervousness of the debate, and you saw him at these rallies. He said, I felt like at the rallies, at the things I was going to, the shops I was going in, that the momentum was going our way, and it obviously wasn't at the end. So yeah, I was a little surprised. I thought we had a positive message, and I thought the country was ready for that. No, the country's not ready for a positive message. This is blaming the country again. Why don't we just go to the name calling? Walz's words come a month after Trump won the presidential election over Harris. When asked if Walz thought he helped or hurt Harris on the campaign trail, he said, the history will write that. He added that in the aftermath of the election loss, there were, quote, obviously things that could have been done differently, adding that he did the best he could. History will write that. It wasn't my decision to make. Ooh, that's kind of blaming Harris then, isn't it? That was the vice president's decision. As I said in this campaign, when you ask the question, are these things you could have done differently since we lost? The answer is obviously yes. On this one, I did the best that I could. All right. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Meet the Press interview with Trump. Keep those comments coming in. Keep those waves coming in. And we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Stay with us.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617
The holiday season has arrived, a time where more than ever our thoughts turn gratefully to those who serve our community and those all around us. May the holiday season end the present year on a cheerful note and make way for a fresh and bright new year. Here's wishing you a happy holidays. This holiday greeting is brought to you by our friends at Tom South Corning Collision, Sheddon's Wholesale, Suburban Propane, Corning Building Company, Empire Bricks, Hector Wine Company, and Apple Ridge Senior Living.
Wow, you found it.
I did.
The History of Water Part 6? I've been dying to read this.
I know, honey.
I always wanted that book.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install one of our high-efficiency water softeners, we're thinking about hard water and limescale buildup, so you can just think about longer-lasting appliances and softer skin and hair. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
Why it's hard to stop a train? It's how we've invented products that reinvented our world. It's how we test as hard as the elements do. It's how we run.
Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning in Corning, New York is a local, veteran-owned and operated company with over 25 years' experience. From service and repair to new installations, trust the experts at Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning.
Thank you to Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. We are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer, known and unknown. That's in references to the crimes that Hunter had been pardoned from. So those crimes that we know and ones that we don't know, maybe ever or yet. So good boy Joe must know something we don't. That's a good point. I wonder if he can be held accountable for any unknown Hunter crimes as an accessory. Well, that ties into what Trump had said with Meet the Press, saying that he would not go after Biden and others, this kind of prosecute them, this kind of lawfare that they used against him. He said, essentially, I don't have it. My retribution will be through success. We'll talk about that in a moment. Now, the Trump-Vance transition team sent out a recap of the interview with Donald Trump as he sat down with Meet the Press for his first full-length network interview since his resounding victory last month. He discussed his plans for restoring security and prosperity to the country once again. Some of the messages that are their takeaway: President Trump signaled a return to the basics, beginning as soon as he takes office. Quote, a lot of it will have to do with economics. A lot of it is going to have to do with energy. A lot is going to have to do with the border. He also previewed his second inaugural address. He said, it's going to be a message of unity. And again, I think success brings unity. Wasn't it interesting with his first inaugural address back in 2016 when he was talking about the kind of the corruption, if you will, in politics and the swamp and the deep state, and all the people that he was talking about were right behind him on that, I don't think he called it dais, but right behind him. A lot of people would not have been able to pull that off, would have been a little bit fearful of saying that in front of the exact people he was talking about, but not President Trump. So it'll be interesting. We learned, and I mentioned this kind of breaking story earlier in the program, that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will be attending the inauguration, but I'll continue. President Trump offered a message for all Americans, including those who didn't vote for him. We want success for our country, he said. I'm not looking to go back into the past, and this is about the retribution. I'm looking to make our country successful. Retribution will be through success. So he will not be using that lawfare, even though, and that's why I think the media is talking about it so much, that Biden may preemptively pardon these people so that Trump can't go after them. And you think, he hasn't been saying he's going to do that. Yes, on the campaign trail, he says things that we know for fun and gets laughs, but they take everything that he says so seriously. So he's not the one that's been threatening lawfare. It's really them saying, suggesting the idea that he's going to use lawfare. The exact thing, like we talked about earlier in the program with Obama's speech, Obama's talking about that lawfare, the exact thing that his party did for the last 4 years. But I'll continue. President Trump declared his immediate top priority will be border security. We have to get the criminals out of our country. Number one, we're doing criminals, and we're going to get them really rapidly. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Trump reiterated his plans for mass deportation of criminal illegal aliens. Quote, I think you have to do it. It's a very tough thing to do, but you have rules, regulations, laws. They came in illegally. The people who have been treated very unfairly are the people that have been in line for 10 years to come into this country. He also outlined the effectiveness of tariffs, which we'll talk about in a second as well. I've stopped wars with tariffs, he said. He described urging Mexico and Canada to stem the flow of illegal immigration and deadly drugs in the United States. Trudeau flew to Mar-a-Lago within about 15 seconds after the call ended, meaning the tariff call. Trump pledged to make the country healthy again. When you look at what's going on with disease and sickness in our country, something's wrong. He also elaborated on the future of NATO. If they're paying their bills and if I think they're treating us fairly, the answer is absolutely I'd stay with NATO. He asserted the need for peace, particularly in Ukraine. There are people being killed in that war at levels that nobody has ever seen before. It should have never been allowed to happen. He also showed that he was recommitted to protecting Americans with pre-existing conditions. I want to have better health care for less money. And he also made it very clear, no matter what you saw on the ads and you heard the rhetoric from the left, they always say Social Security, Medicare. He said, we're not touching Social Security. Then he talked about the future of FBI Director Chris Wray. If Kash Patel gets in, we're going to be taking somebody's place, right? That somebody is the man you're talking about. And finally, on addressing pardons for J6 defendants, he said, we're going to look at individual cases. They've been in there for years. So that's kind of a quick overview coming from the Trump campaign. There's a lot more to dive into here. But NBC is being called out, criticized for selectively omitting key words from the 14th Amendment in Trump's interview. Senator Mike Lee took NBC News to task for selectively omitting a key part of the 14th Amendment in a question about birthright citizenship during an interview with Trump on Sunday. Trump was asked about a number of changes he intends to implement once he assumes office during a sit-down released on NBC's Meet the Press, including his plan to end birthright citizenship. Under the 14th Amendment, someone born in the U.S. is granted citizenship regardless of whether their parents are citizens. Trump confirmed that he intends to end the policy, quote, on day one, calling it ridiculous. Host Kristen Welker pushed back, as they always do. Can't just have a regular interview. Pushback argued that the 14th Amendment, quote, states all persons in the United States are citizens. Can you get around the 14th Amendment with executive action, she asked. Trump said he was open to using executive action, reiterating that the U.S. is, quote, the only country that has it, and we have to end it. Well, Lee shared a clip of the exchange on Sunday, rebuking the NBC host for omitting 6 critical words from the 14th Amendment in her question. Quote, all persons born in the United States and subject to this jurisdiction thereof shall be citizens of the United States. Those words that she omitted matter. Then he continued to break down the issue in a lengthy 12-part thread. Congress has the power to define what it means to be born in the United States and subject to this jurisdiction thereof. While current law contains no such restrictions, Congress could pass a law defining what it means to be born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, excluding, prospectively from birthright citizenship, individuals born in the U.S. to illegal aliens. Those who suggest Congress is somehow powerless to limit birthright citizenship ignore important constitutional text giving Congress power to define who among those are born in the United States is born subject to the jurisdiction thereof. It bothers me that Meet the Press, long revered as America's leading Sunday political news program, has become so one-sided. In this instance, Meet the Press seems to try to render a debatable matter beyond debate by selectively omitting key words from the Constitution, making it appear incorrectly that the 14th Amendment prescribes any and all restrictions on birthright citizenship. NBC has not responded to that omission. Now, Trump addressed a number of other topics during that interview, including his plan to restore the country's reputation globally, his thoughts on Christopher Wray, and how he plans to unify a fractured country. Keep this in mind, unifying a fractured country, a country that over half of the people were called garbage by the current administration. But I'll continue. This is what Trump had to say. It's going to be a message of unity. This is about the inauguration. Oh, and I asked the question. I know I've asked this before. Do you plan on going to the inauguration? I'd love to hear from you. I know very often in this audience, people will go to the inauguration. If a Republican or a Democrat, I'd love to hear if you are going to go, and then I'd love to see some pictures after. But this is what he said. It's going to be a message of unity, and I think success brings unity. And I've experienced that. I've experienced it my first term. As I said, we're going to be talking about unity, and we're going to be talking about success, making our country safe, keeping people that shouldn't be in our country out. We have to do that. I know it doesn't sound nice, but we have to do that. Basically, it's going to be about bringing our country together. More on Trump's interview on Meet the Press when we come back. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We'll be right back.
When I was in law school, my father had to stop working when he developed early Alzheimer's. Social Security disability benefits saved my parents financially. I'm Peter Gorton of Lockman & Gorton. Now I'm a lawyer who helps people when they need Social Security disability. If you can't work, I'd like to help.
For a free consultation, call Lockman & Gorton toll-free 1-800-698-0567.
Due to the tremendous response, Hesselson's returns their Arnott Mall location this week with more great deals on their American Whirlpool swim spas and hot tubs. Thousands of dollars of savings and over 25 models still in stock, but 4 days only this Thursday through Sunday. Take delivery now and save even more. Plus, free chemicals, free steps, and free Bluetooth music. Hesselson's still offers 0% financing options for up to 5 full years. Hesselson's Arnott Mall this Thursday through Sunday, Old Champ Store, with their American Whirlpool hot tubs and swim spas. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
I'm Mary Offord. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.
The Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app.
For the touchdown!
Yeah, yours. Your teams. Your highlights. Your scores. Your stories. Just choose your favorites to get more of what you want.
To the end zone!
And of course, stream your teams live. The best part is free with your pay TV subscription. Grab your Fox Sports app today.
Fox website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Some comments from viewers. You know who the Democrats should be blaming for their election losses, not just their lack of substance and so on, but they should be blaming the shamefully biased media. Yes, the media, the mainstream media, showed their true colors. And listen, they've been saying this since 2016, that they don't have to be fair in regards to Trump. They think Trump is that bad. But the fact-checking during the debate, it was just glaring. They didn't hide the bias. I think they're showing that again, even with this Meet the Press interview. There is still that hatred for Trump, and they don't care what you think about them going after him. So yes, shamefully biased, and I think that's why MSNBC and places like that are suffering so much in their ratings. People are leaving in droves because they've been lied to for so often. But a comment from a different viewer. That's from Ken. Good morning, Ken. Frank, I will bet that Biden will give himself and all his family members blanket pardons. I think he agreed to be the Democrats' puppet president in exchange for the protection of the entire Biden crime family. As we have all seen in the past, the Democrats will protect their own, as long as they are deemed useful to the party. Biden's obvious decline in his mental acuity has eliminated his usefulness to the party. So Biden and his family are now on their own, and the only way they will escape the rightful prosecution by an honest U.S. Attorney General for their illegal activities are the pardons. Now, there was, and I think it was on, to your point, Ken, I believe it was on Drudge Report this morning, but it was too many pages. Here's the headline is from Politico, and it says, "Gun Lies and Audio Tape, How Biden's Family Ties Could Lead to Another Pardon." And it goes through a lot of Biden's family, etc. Many people have speculated that he would pardon, much like he did Hunter, his brother Jim. We will see. These last-minute pardons, the Democrats are not very happy with them, not happy with the tact that Biden has taken. The question was asked on Meet the Press about the January 6th committee. He said, and Cheney was behind it, and so was Benny Thompson and everybody on that committee. They should go to jail for what they did. Honestly, they should go to jail. Kristen Welker said, so you think Liz Cheney should go to jail? Yeah, for what they did. So Welker, again, shocked, saying, everyone on that committee, you think? He said, yeah, I think everybody should go to jail. Anybody that voted in favor. So she said, are you going to direct your FBI director and your attorney general to send them to jail? He said, no, not at all. I think that they have to look at that, but I'm not going to. I'm going to focus on drill, baby, drill. He also said there won't be retribution. That is, retribution will be through my success. Welker says she was talking specifically about Kash Patel. He has a list in his book of 60 people that he calls members of the so-called deep state. They always say so-called deep state, as if there isn't this bureaucratic, behind-the-scenes cabal. But anyway, it includes Democrats like Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton. It includes former members of your cabinet, from Bill Barr to Christopher Wray. You campaigned on destroying the deep state. Do you want Kash Patel to launch investigations into people on that list? And he said, no. I mean, he's going to do what he thinks is right, and I will. And I don't want to go through this because it's almost impossible to read the transcript, because what you have is, and we see this all the time, the interviewer, because of that bias, interrupting so much that it gets very confusing back and forth to read it. I just wanted to give you the crux of what he had to say. But the constant interruption, we see now the fact-checking that happens so often live during these interviews and often proven to be wrong about their fact-checking. So it is becoming obnoxious to that viewer's point. It's not just shamefully biased, it's obnoxious as well, and not really doing it in the best interest of the viewer. But I'll continue. He said, no, not at all. We have two great people. That we have him and we have Pam. And Pam Bondi has been like a rocket ship. She's very popular and very good and very fair. And Kash Patel is very fair, I'll tell you. I thought Kash may be difficult because he's, a strong conservative voice. And I don't know of anybody that's not singing his praises. The other day, I was watching, and Trey Gowdy, who's a moderate person and very smart and very respected in the party, he's Kash's biggest fan. He said, this is the most misunderstood man in politics. He's great. I guess they worked together on the Russia hoax or something, and Trey Gowdy became a fan. Trey, you know Trey Gowdy. Everybody respects him, and just like him, others also, I don't know of one negative vote. I don't think he's going to have any negative votes. So Welker said, is it your expectation, though, that Kash Patel will pursue investigations against your political enemies? He said, no, I don't think so. If they were crooked, if they did something wrong, if they had broken the law, probably. They went after me, they went after me, and I did nothing wrong. Well, Welker said, well, let me ask you this. You said President Biden, quote, that you're going to appoint a real special prosecutor to go after Joe Biden. You said that and he said, where did I say that? Where? You said that Truth Social, June 12th, 2023. I will appoint a real special prosecutor to go after the most corrupt president in the history of the United States. Well, Trump said, well, that part is true. I'm really looking to make our country successful. I'm not looking to go back in the past. I'm looking to make our country successful. Retribution will be through success. If we can make our success, this country successful, that would be the greatest. That would be such a great achievement. Bring it back. We have a country now that's overridden with crime. That has millions of people that shouldn't be here, that should be in prison in other countries, that should be in mental institutions. We have drug lords being dropped into our country and told never to go back to their own country. I'm looking to make our country great again. I'm looking to bring prices down because, I won on two things, the border and more than immigration, They like to say immigration. I break it down more to the border. But I won on the border and I won on groceries. Very simple words, groceries. Like almost, who uses the word? I started using the word, the groceries. When you buy apples, when you buy bacon, when you buy eggs, they would double and triple the price over a short period of time. And I won an election based on that. We're going to bring those prices way down. We're going to talk a little bit more about what Trump had to say, but we're running a tad bit late. Keep those comments coming in. Don't forget, we have the Salvation Army Telethon, the second annual Salvation Army Telethon coming up on Friday. You can be a part of it by making donations to the Salvation Army of Corning. We're trying to reach that goal of at least $5,000. We have an anonymous viewer, to frankly speaking, who's kind enough to match donations up to $5,000. So if we can hit that goal of $5,000, that means the Salvation Army will have $10,000. Now, if we only make $1,000, they'll get $2,000. So it's not bad. Whatever we get, everything is doubled up to $5,000. So if you want to take part in that, we'll have numbers on the bottom of the screen where you can I can tell you right now, you could text MATCH to 31333, MATCH to 31333. You can also, that day we'll have a QR code up on the screen, or you can stop by in person. We'll have a kettle out front. And also, as you see on the desk when we come back from break, we have a kettle in here now. So if you want to stop by, just text me ahead of time, or if you see me in the window, knock on the door and make your donation ahead of time. I'd really appreciate it. And the Salvation Army of Corning appreciates it. And that's all 2 hours of Frankly Speaking on Friday. We've got great music lined up, great guests. I know you're going to have a lot of fun, just like you did last year. We had so many compliments on it last year because of the great music from the Crystal Chords and Doc Possum. Well, we've got all that and more this year. All right, let's take that break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Oh, better tasting is better for the planet.
That's great, sir. Can I take your order?
Oh, number 3. At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install our drinking water and softening systems, we're thinking about filtering contaminants and the minerals that make water hard. So you can just think about softer, cleaner, better tasting water. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-781-9990 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-781-9990. 1-800-781-9990. Call now.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs as we overlook Market Street in Corning as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street. I'm your host, Frank Akam. This is Frankly Speaking. We're talking about the interview on Meet the Press. Comment from a viewer before we go to that. So what is being said by Trump is Hunter Biden will get 2 blanket pardons if the Trump DOJ doesn't contest Joe Biden's pardon of his son. Even Jonathan Turley said that he would be in question exonerated someone from crimes they may have committed. That needs to be contested. Thank you very much. Now, Trump said on Sunday's Meet the Press that he will not cut Social Security. And you know that's what Democrats always try to push during election season. Kristen Welker said the president-elect is tasking Elon Musk, the billionaire CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, to try to cut government spending, along with one of Mr. Trump's former primary rivals, businessman Vivek Ramaswamy, All of it putting a spotlight on what it would mean for entitlements and defense spending. I think a lot of people hear that and get concerned about Medicare and Social Security. Trump said it's not going to have anything to do with that. So you won't touch Medicare, Social Security? He said, we are talking about theft, abuse, fraud. I said, no, we're not talking Social Security, other than we have to make it more efficient. But the people will get what they are getting. Welker said, so entitlements off the table. And he said, we're not raising ages or any of that stuff. I won't do it. He also says he's open to RFK Jr. looking into a link between vaccines and autism. Again, on Meet the Press. Welker said, sir, going back 25 years, studies show that there is no link between vaccines and autism. Yet it sounds like you are open to the possibility of him, meaning RFK Jr., looking into getting rid of them. He said, I'm open to anything. I think somebody has to find out. If you go back 25 years ago, you had very little autism. Welker said, well, they say because they're better at identifying it. All right. Trump laid out, according to Aaron Pellish from CNN, that Trump lays out his early acts on deportation and January 6 pardons. Are you surprised about the speed of all this? I mean, you look at how many people he's nominated over the weekend, nominating more people, kind of lower level positions. He's been hitting the ground running, as we talked about with Joe Semplinsky, former Assemblyman-elect, on the program on Thursday, talking about how much he's accomplished. And what Miranda Devine said today is essentially he is the de facto president at this point. That's what the world is seeing. They're seeing his strength when he visits Notre Dame, when he talks with Macron or talks with Trudeau, that he is the de facto president, and everybody's just waiting till January 20th, a little over a month away, when Biden is no longer in the White House. But we'll continue with what CNN had to say. Donald Trump, in a televised interview that aired Sunday, previewed a sweeping agenda for his first days in office, outlining how his administration will prioritize deporting migrants with criminal records, vowing to pursue pardons for January 6th defendants on his first day, and raising the possibility that former Representative Liz Cheney and other political opponents could face jail time. At the same time, Trump said he's open to working with Democrats to preserve the legal status of Dreamers, an often used term for immigrants who were brought into the U.S. as children, even as he stood by campaign pledges of mass deportation, saying, quote, we have to do something about the Dreamers, because these are people that have been brought here at a very young age, and many of these are middle-aged people now. They don't even speak the language of their country. And yes, we're going to do something about that, he said. I will work with Democrats on a plan, and if we can come up with a plan, but the Democrats have made it very, very difficult to do anything. Republicans are very open to the Dreamers. Trump said his administration's mass deportation efforts will target people with criminal histories, but indicated it could go beyond deporting criminals without specifying who the other people outside of criminals would be. When asked whether he plans to deport every person who has entered the country illegally, he said, I think you have to do it. It's a very tough thing to do. You know, you have rules, regulations, laws. They came in illegally. Asked about families with mixed immigration status, where parents are in the country illegally, but their children are not, Trump said, I don't want to be breaking up families. So the only way you don't break up the family is you keep them together, and you have to send them all back. Ooh. We're going to have to get, and then he talked about the 14th Amendment, of course, we're going to have to get in it changed, meaning that birthright, or maybe I would go back to the people, but we have to end it. We're the only country that has it. And how do you like this from CNN? Echoing a false statement he's made in the past. They talked about all the questions about investigations and pardons. They're pushing this idea that he is going to use the exact lawfare that the other party used on him, that the Democrat Party used on him. Kind of that hypocrisy. We mentioned it with Obama's speech last week, saying that there's this threat of weaponization of the judicial system, which is exactly what they did. And as I mentioned on last week's program, I think that was so important to Donald Trump in the end that it helped him be victorious. When you look at Alvin Bragg's case or Letitia James's case, people said enough is enough. Remember the actor Dennis Quaid saying in that interview that, you know, maybe wasn't the biggest Trump fan, but seeing the justice system politicized was just too much for him. And that's what made him change his opinion. I think there's a lot of people like that. Now, the one takeaway from this interview that they're pushing the hardest is that he can't guarantee tariffs won't raise prices. I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee tomorrow, he said, before claiming that during his first presidency, we had no inflation and the tariffs he imposed cost Americans nothing. Both of these claims are false, according to CNN. But they don't give any more specifics about what the numbers actually were. Isn't that interesting? Trump also said he does not intend to replace Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve, when he takes office. All right, so there's your quick overview of that interview. We do have some comments coming in on the interview. We're also going to talk about his discussion with the New York Post, an exclusive sit down, if you will, with the New York Post. We've got a couple other things as we wrap up today's edition. Yes, we are moving fast. A comment from a viewer from Ken saying, I didn't listen to the entire Trump Welker interview yet. I watched the excerpts they aired on Meet the Press yesterday. I thought it is interesting that not only did Welker interrupt Trump to insert her own facts during the interviews, but during breaks, it showed her at the studio teasing the next segment, and she took that opportunity to throw in fact checks that Trump couldn't respond to. Yeah, I would just say from a technical standpoint, these fact-checking, and we saw it a lot during the election as well, very distracting, very frustrating. You know, you have the man who's going to be president of the United States. We want to hear from him, not Welker, right? That's the point. That's why we try to do our interviews here. It's not about what I have to say. It's about getting to the information from whoever the person being interviewed is. In this case, they have to, and they remember, they don't do it on both sides. And that was one of the criticisms of the debate with Harris, that they said, we practiced fact-checking Trump, not Harris, just Trump, so that we could interrupt, and that's what happened. I mean, when you had Harris bring up the 2020 project or 2025 project or whatever it's called, Republicans don't really know what it is. They didn't fact-check her. Good people on both sides didn't fact-check that either. So yes, Ken, I know that this is a new way they'll be doing things, and it's only going to get worse. With any Republican. We saw it with Tom Cotton over the election season. We saw it with obviously J.D. Vance having to put up with it. And it gets, from a viewer standpoint, it gets to where you don't want to watch it because it's so awkward, interrupting constantly, and very often their fact checks are proven to be wrong, just like during the debate. What they're saying here is we have to show our bias. We have to try to attack the president at all times. That's what they now believe their job to be. All right, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Getting the right representation.
It matters.
Hiring a law firm whose focus is motor vehicle accident cases.
It matters.
Hiring a firm with the experience and resources to maximize your recovery.
It matters.
William Mattar is the largest motor vehicle accident firm in New York State. We got that way by winning. If you're hurt in a car, it matters who you hire. Call William Mattar. Visit WilliamMattar.com.
The holiday season has arrived, a time where more than ever our thoughts turn gratefully to those who serve our community and those all around us. May the holiday season end the present year on a cheerful note and make way for a fresh and bright new year. Here's wishing you a happy holidays. This holiday greeting is brought to you by our friends at Tom South Corning Collision, Sheddon's Wholesale, Suburban Propane, Corning Building Company, Empire Bricks, Hector Wine Company, and Apple Ridge Senior Living.
Shop and compare.
Shop and compare.
Shop and compare.
Times may change, but one thing stays the same.
Shop and compare.
You won't find a better deal. Guaranteed.
Shop and compare.
Coon Sit and Sleep Shop in Corning. Shop and compare.
It's a new season of Sherry.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mom.
Frankly Speaking, Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Donald Trump had an exclusive interview with the New York Post. He talked about the power grip handshakes he shared with French President Emmanuel Macron, during their meeting over the weekend, with the president-elect insisting it was no big deal. It got a lot of attention over the weekend. It was kind of over the top. Some are saying it's just a firm handshake. He understands that. Just a firm handshake. It became the talk online Saturday when they met up before Notre Dame Cathedral's reopening ceremony. During the first shake, Trump grabbed Macron's hand in a tight fist and pulled him in close for an embrace before holding the French president's hand for an extended time as photographers snapped away. Later, Trump clasped Macron in an overhanded grip and angled his arm well above the French president in a distinctly domineering pose. But the pair also talked policy, where Trump said that they were in agreement about NATO paying their fair share. I said NATO is good as long as they pay their bills, but they got to pay their bills. Because, you know, when I got involved with NATO, nobody paid. And when they paid, then they paid after I got involved. He called members of the alliance delinquent for their contributions to its defense budget and evoked the First and Second World Wars to claim France needed NATO more than any other European nation. He agrees with me, Trump said. He's a good man. He did a good job. I told him, you have no idea how good a job you did on that chapel. That's very hard to do. Painstaking. That was in reference to, of course, renovating and fixing after that fire in Notre Dame Cathedral. He also says to the New York Post that Zelensky, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, is ready for peace. And you've seen this a little bit more coming from Zelensky. Last week we brought to you the headline that he is open to really giving up some pieces of land that Russia has already taken, which is an interesting and a completely different position than he'd taken previously. But Trump's saying he wants to make peace, meaning Zelensky. That's new. He wants to have a ceasefire. He wants to make peace. We didn't talk about the details. He thinks it's time, and Putin should think it's time because he's lost. When you lose 700,000 people, it's time. It's not going to end until there's a peace. Wow, 700,000 people. That's how many people that Russia has lost in this war with Ukraine. Amazing. He said he spoke to Zelensky about how to end the bloody conflict that's been raging since 2022. I'm formulating a concept of how to end that ridiculous war. He also pointed to his Truth Social post where he mentioned Russia in context of the fall of the Syrian government. What happened there was Russia was not able to step up to the plate because they were all bogged down in the horrible war that never should have happened in Ukraine. And that is a good point. Iran overextended at that point, could not help Syria. The side chat inside the cathedral with First Lady also was brought up in this interview. She's very nice. She couldn't have been nicer, Trump said. It's politics. You have to get used to it, he said about the political spats in the past. She was very nice, and we had a very nice conversation. Well, if you look at it, especially with the way the Democrat Party is, I can't blame her for being friendly to Trump. Really, at the end of the day, because they've all turned on her husband. So why, to use Trump's phrase that he uses so often, what do you got to lose? So she talked to him. That became kind of the talk of the opening of the Notre Dame Cathedral. He also said he had a nice talk, or a great talk, with UK United Kingdom Prince William. I had a great talk with the Prince, and I asked him about his wife, and he said she's doing well. And I asked him about his father, and his father is fighting very hard. And he loves his father, and he loves his wife. So it was sad. We had a great talk for half an hour, a little more than half an hour. We had a great talk. And then he talked about the Prince's good looks. He's a good-looking guy. He looked really very handsome last night. Some people look better in person. He looked great. He looked really nice, and I told him that. He also talked about some of the other world leaders that he's meeting with. Again, going back to Miranda Devine's point, it's really as if he is the de facto president as of right now. Whether or not the world likes it, and the Bushes and the Clintons and the Cheneys and the Obamas, but he is now the leader of the free world. But he talked about the Notre Dame Cathedral, saying they were able to clean the stone beautifully. It was very dark. I was there. It was very dark before from 900 years of whatever. Now it's clean and light, and it's exact replication. I thought it was a very sad day in the world when it was burning. You know, it represented one of the ultimate places for religion and for Christianity, and I thought it was a very sad day. So I was invited by the Prime Minister, and he treated our country very nicely, and he did a great job. We got to take another short break, and then we're going to wrap things up for today's edition of Frankly Speaking, so stay with us, get those last-minute comments in, and we'll be right back. Stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Hustling plus overbooked plus bustling plus cleaning overlooked. It all adds up. With Mary Maid's professional cleaning services, you'll have one less thing to worry about. Mary Maid's. Relax. It's done. Hustling plus too busy plus bustling plus in a tizzy. It all adds up. With Mary Maid's professional cleaning services, you'll have one less thing to worry about. Mary Maid's. Relax. It's done.
It's hard to explain what this feels like. Moving piles of earth, towing up to 4,000 pounds, cutting millions of blades of grass. We could keep trying to put it into words, but nothing compares to experiencing it for yourself. You just have to get in the seat.
It's the Black Friday sales event at Lindsay Equipment. Get 0% financing for 60 months on in-stock gators, zero-turn mowers, and
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Comment from Ken. He says, I would have to push back on your comment, meaning my comment, that doing what they can to fact check and push back on the Trump presidency is what they, quote, believe their job to be. I think they know that is their job. And if they don't do what is expected, they will lose their lucrative jobs. That's a good point, Ken. Semantics there, but I agree with you more so that they know it is their job. Yes, that's coming down from the top. They are being told that they have to go. Nothing's off limits to go after Trump, Vance. You see it with his nominations, the criticisms of some of the people that he's nominated. So, yes, I agree. I didn't really misspeak. I just didn't really think to word it that way, and I agree with you that they know that is their job. They are being told, and even though it's costing them ratings, costing them advertisement dollars, it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, and they get taught this at journalism school, they are to bring down a Republican president. It goes back to Nixon and Watergate. That's why Woodward and Bernstein are so admired in the journalistic field. So MAGA, it says here, is going wild over Jill Biden's very friendly encounter with Trump at Notre Dame. Biden and Trump shared a moment caught on camera while waiting for French First Lady Brigitte Macron to take the seat that separated them during the reopening ceremony. On Sunday, Trump seized on the frenzy and used a photo of him and Jill Biden that caused a social media stir to hawk his own cologne line. A fragrance your enemies can't resist, the caption read. Fight, fight, fight. While it's not clear what was said between them, internet commentators had some theories that Jill has warmed up to the incoming president. Despite her harsh words for Trump and his scathing attacks on her husband in the past, some users theorize that she ultimately supported the president-elect during the 2024 race. Quote, I just want to find someone that looks at me the way that Jill Biden looks at Trump. Jill Biden looks like she's in love with the boss Trump. 100% confirmed she voted for Trump. She voted for him. It's settled science. And this has been the point that was made when Joe Biden welcomed the president and the speeches that he gave after the election, that going back to my theory on it, that Biden secretly, because of his ego, wanted Trump to win because then he could tell Nancy Pelosi and others, see, I told you so. And that's why they're coming after him even stronger now and trying to blame him for the loss because they don't like the pushback. But many speculating that Jill Biden, not just Joe, may have voted for Trump after the way the Democrat Party treated Joe Biden. One podcaster joking that maybe when they were talking, Trump said, thank you for voting for me. All right. We are nearly out of time. Let's go through a few quick things. As I mentioned earlier in the program, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will attend the Trump inauguration. That will be very interesting. Stephen Miller said day one, Trump will begin the largest deportation operation in American history. First, you can get John Thune and Lindsey Graham. They have promised that they can get a full funding package for the border, the most significant border security investment in American history, which would be the biggest domestic policy win in at least 50 years to the president's desk in January and early February. That would mean a historic increase in border agents, a pay raise for both full funding for military operations, full funding for ICE beds, full funding, et cetera, for Air Marines operations. All right. Oh, by the way, Trump had picked his personal lawyer, Alina Habba, to be counselor to the president. There was a slew of staffing picks he announced last night. Alina has been a tireless advocate for justice, a fierce defender of the rule of law, and an invaluable advisor to my campaign and transition team, Trump said. All right, that does it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you to everyone who joined us this morning. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for all the waves. Make sure you join us all week as we prepare for the telethon, the Salvation Army Telethon, the second annual, coming up on Friday from 6 to 8 a.m. So do not miss it. And prepare to donate. We'll tell you different ways so you can have that information. Have a great day. We will see you every weekday morning starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will see you tomorrow morning bright and early. I look forward to it already.
Want to know why it's hard to stop a train? It's how we've invented products that reinvented our world. It's how we test as hard as the elements do. It's how we run.
Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning in Corning, New York is a local, veteran-owned and operated company with over 25 years' experience. From service and repair to new installations, trust the experts at Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning.